Now, both sides will be in court at 9:30 this morning for that hearing. If the judge sides with the plaintiffs, he could order a temporary shutdown, leaving questions about how immigration enforcement operations will continue to carry out or continue.
A sign outside the complex warns unwelcome visitors to stay away, but the agents pay it no mind. It's unclear who they were possibly looking for, but a few minutes after 10 this morning, they take a man into custody.
The family tells me they were about to walk through the TSA line when the video shows 39-year-old Marta Briseida Renderos Leiva being detained by federal agents.
And we're back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, my people. You know that it helps us out a ton. And of course, it helps you because it helps us keep bringing you these stories every day. Now, y'all, today we're going to be talking about a lawsuit and a court hearing that is going to be starting soon here today in Chicago, where a couple of people are suing the United States Department of Homeland Security and the immigration related functions in the Homeland Security Department over the Broadview ICE detention facility. Now, this is the Chicago area facility where we have seen so many of the protests happening over the recent months, where ICE facility has been battling protesters who have been impeding their ingress and egress from the facility, where agents have deployed who knows how many canisters of gas against. It's just been a crazy chaotic situation there, y'all. Now, two people who were detained in that facility are suing. And as you will see from the upcoming report, this could result in the closure, temporary closure, maybe even permanent closure of Broadview. So we're going to take a look at the news report relating to that and also the court documents that go along with that. We're also going to see today, y'all, how, remember those little placards that, yo boy, the illustrious sub 10% approval rating mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, remember how he printed up those little placards, those little signs that say, hey, ICE, you're not welcome here. Well, that's not working, as I predicted. ICE still goes where they want to go. And the immigration enforcement people, they go where they want to go, y'all. And we're going to see how not only is that not working, but it might be giving people some kind of false sense of security. And it could be actually even be dangerous, as I pointed out previously. And then finally, y'all, we're just going to talk briefly about how, you hear so often, even an American citizen was detained. And we're going to talk briefly about that because you hear that on the news a lot. You hear that a lot on social media when people are talking about these situations. But as I'm going to show you, you don't know who is breaking the law until you process people. So I'm going to give you an interesting analogy and you see if you agree with the analogy or not. We'll look at that a little bit later as well. So y'all, without further lead in, let's go ahead and hop into it. But before we do, y'all, we are launching our official Patreon. So if you want to be a founding member on our Patreon, we have just 222 slots, y'all. If you want to be a founding member, go down, click the very first link in the description, and you're gonna feel good about this, y'all, because believe it or not, we are an actual paralegal school, and we help people get their paralegal certificate and get working in the paralegal field. And all of the proceeds from our Patreon, when you enroll as a founding member, all of that is gonna go to scholarships for people who would like to study at our institute, y'all. So click that first link down in the description. Join us as a founding member, y'all. This deal will not come back. Now let's get into the story.
And today in federal court, the fight over conditions inside the Broadview ICE facility.
A judge could decide whether to temporarily close the facility over claims of inhumane conditions there. Darius Johnson live at the Dirksen Federal Building, where that hearing is taking place a little later on this morning. Good morning, Darius.
Good morning, ladies. Yes, that federal judge has all day to listen to live testimony in the courtroom, including two people who were recently detained at that processing facility in Broadview. They will be brought back into court today to testify after allegations of inhumane conditions while detained. Take a look. This is that ICE processing facility in Broadview that has been at the center of immigration enforcement, arrests, protests, and political pressure for nearly 2 months. Advocates say detainees lack clean spaces, legal access, access and basic needs, while the government insists the facility meets standards. In a new court filing, federal attorneys defend conditions inside, saying detainees get 3 meals a day, water, foil blankets, and phone access, and argue that shutting it down would paralyze ICE operations across 6 states.
Homeland Security would have no place to process these detainees. So I'm sure they're trying to see if, just in case they lose, if there's any alternative places that they could do processing of the people that they're detaining.
Now, both sides will be in court at 9:30 this morning for that hearing. If the judge sides with the plaintiffs, he could order a temporary shutdown, leaving questions about how immigration enforcement operations will continue to carry out or continue if there is no central hub. We're live at the Dirksen Federal Building this morning. I'm Darius Johnson, CBS News Chicago. Ladies, back to you.
All right, Darius, thank you for those details.
Okay, so here we have the actual complaint that was filed. Let's take a look at what it says. It says, federal authorities are conducting a massive and inhumane immigration enforcement operation in the Chicago area, Operation Midway Blitz, under defendants' authority. Huge numbers of people are being arrested and detained. Most have been brought to what is being used as a de facto immigration detention facility right outside the city limits in Broadview. Broadview is meant to be a holding facility, a way station where people are briefly held for processing before being moved to a longer-term detention facility. Historically, people were held for a few hours in the holding cells that occupy a portion of the first floor. But in the wake of Midway Blitz, defendants are now warehousing people at Broadview for days on end. The consequences have been dire and wholly predictable. So what type of violations are happening? The class members, that would be people held at Broadview, lack access to adequate medical care, even for pre-existing medical conditions. Detainees are denied prescription medication, even when it is dropped off by family members. Physical conditions are filthy with poor sanitation, clogged toilets and blood, human fluids, and insects in the sink and floor. Privacy is non-existent. People are forced to use the bathroom that is located inside their crowded holding cell, which in some cells are separated by a partial wall that affords almost no privacy, and in others is entirely unseparated from the rest of the cell. Also, it says here that the federal officers who patrol Broadview are abusive and cruel. So you get a sense for what they're saying here. So what do they want, y'all? It says prayer for relief. Wherefore, plaintiffs request that the court grant the following relief. Declare that this suit is maintainable as class action. Declare that defendants are violating the Fifth Amendment due process clause. So here they have a bunch of things that they're looking for, and included in that would be additional steps as needed by the judge, which could be interpreted as even closing temporarily or permanently Broadview, y'all. And I will tell you that if Broadview is closed, you can expect thousands of people who are in the country without permission, who have been detained, to be released right back into the country. So do y'all remember a few weeks ago when the illustrious sub 10% approval rating mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, started passing out little signs saying, ICE, you're not welcome here. You can't come here, ICE. Do y'all remember that? Well, let's take a look at this report. You're actually going to see one of those signs. Danielle Carter of Chicago Flips Red. She's going to point one of those out. And also you're going to see that these signs really don't have any power. Let's take a look.
Look at this at the City Hall building. We as tax-paying citizens, ICE, you are welcome here. We pay for this building. We pay for these streets. And we as the citizens say we want you here. We welcome federal agents and ICE officers.
It was just before 10 o'clock this morning when federal agents were gathered outside this apartment complex. As they entered the complex, word spread very quickly among residents. As the agents, dressed in uniform, walked on the property, numerous residents blowing whistles and taking video on their phones. The idea to warn people that the agents are nearby and to document their actions.
They see somebody outside and they just go ahead and take them. No questions asked. It's just done.
A sign outside the complex warns unwelcome visitors to stay away, but the agents pay it no mind. It's unclear who they were possibly looking for, but a few minutes after 10 this morning, they take a man into custody who friends say does not live here, but was stopping by to give a co-worker a ride to work. This woman, who wants only her first name, Adriana, used, was recording from her balcony.
They don't care if you're a citizen or not. They grab whoever they want to grab.
The Department of Homeland Security failed to return our calls asking for information. Activists say their actions are having a tremendous impact on the community.
We don't see kids playing anymore. The parents are scared to actually pick up their kids from the school bus stop.
Now, before we get to our final story, y'all, I just thought this was interesting. This lady was actually arrested at the airport. This was not Chicago, but it just kind of shows that ICE is everywhere, y'all. Like, you can't get away from them, right? And another thing I noticed, I think people's natural tendency is to resist arrest. Like, you would see videos of people resisting arrest, and it was always like, what? Why are you resisting arrest? Well, you can still ask that question, but it seems like everybody resists arrest at all times. I mean, the more people I've seen who are being arrested or detained by ICE and CBP, the more I notice that it just seems like that's the normal. I mean, people, they don't have any real shot at getting away most of the time, but they tend to resist nonetheless.
An immigration arrest at Salt Lake International Airport has gone viral. Federal immigration agents arrested Marta Renderos Leiva yesterday. This was near the baggage claim, saying that she's from El Salvador and has been in the U.S. illegally since 2020.
Well, tonight, 2 News speaking exclusively to her family to find out more about what happened.
The family tells me they were about to walk through the TSA line when they were stopped by the men, and the following happened. The video shows 39-year-old Marta Briseida Renderos Leiva being detained by federal agents at the airport. A family member of Renderos Leiva says they were on their way to Washington.
La estaban maltratando, me da una impotencia no poder hacer nada por ella y el ver que no le pueden escuchar a uno nada por que no la maltrataran y ellos seguían como si nada, como que era un animal. Son seres humanos y no deben tratarlos así.
Rendero Leiva's family says she had a work permit and had no criminal history. 2 News looked into it and found she had 2 parking tickets and a crossing guard infraction.
She does everything she can to follow the law and that she will never commit crime. She's like the greatest person ever.
According to Adam Craik, an attorney familiar with the case,
this female respondent, that's what they're called in immigration court, was one that did not show at an immigration hearing, so got a removal in absentia, which means there was a deportation order that took place. When that happens, you have an X amount of time to file an appeal, and I don't know if there's been an appeal filed.
The family says they never received a letter, never received a notice. What does that mean for her case?
So that means theoretically that she has a pretty valid motion to reopen. And people say that a lot, but one of the things that we have to show is that she continued to maintain an address that was easily obtained by immigration.
In a statement, ICE said she was given a deportation order in 2020.
How much time does she have before she is removed from the country?
That's the hard part, because with the removal order in place, they could have already gotten a targeted arrest done. They could have the plane ready to go on Friday, which is tomorrow, and she literally could be in her country of origin.
So one of the big things that people say a lot is, even an American citizen was detained. They're detaining American citizens. And listen, y'all, I think this is a very, very unfortunate part of this entire situation. You can't tell who's an American citizen and who isn't just by looking at people. I wouldn't say that's the part that's unfortunate. The unfortunate part is that you're going to wind up detaining people who are not the people you're looking for. Like, it would be great if there were a way to just say, okay, such and such is a criminal, I can tell by this or that, right? Or such and such is subject to deportation, I can tell by this or that. But you can't tell. So I think American citizens are by default going to get caught up. Now, that's unfortunate, but the fact that the news talks about it like they even detained American citizens, it's like, of course they did. Now, I'm going to provide this story here and see if you can see the parallels of the point I'm trying to make.
Channel 2 Action News Investigates is looking into major questions about the accuracy of sobriety tests being used across our state. And we talked to one Georgia senior who was stone cold sober but arrested for DUI.
Channel 2 consumer investigator Justin Gray has been looking into those tests and how officers are being trained to use them. He's live now. And Justin, how accurate is this training at identifying people who are under the influence?
Yeah, George, think about the flip of a coin. Heads or tails, the most recent major studies into marijuana and field sobriety tests finds that the officers in those cases judge the sober drivers as under the influence about half the time. No better than the flip of a coin.
Okay, so why did I bring that up? Why am I bringing up these field sobriety tests? It's because when you are a police officer and you're looking for people driving under the influence, aren't you going to stop and detain a lot of people who are not driving under the influence? You're going to give them a test to make the determination, right? Imagine if every time somebody were stopped who were not DUI, right? But they were stopped to give the test. What if we made a big deal out of it? It'd be like, well, of course. It'd be like, well, yeah, of course. You stop the person, you give them the test, then you make the determination, right? I mean, so again, I'm not making light of the fact that American citizens are detained because nobody wants to be detained and it sucks. Right. And I certainly have sympathy for them and I wouldn't want to go through it myself. But it's not like anybody has a better idea of how to enforce the law. No, there's no such thing as only detaining people who are guilty. You know what I mean? How would you know that beforehand? So, again, not making light of the fact that it happens to people, but I am calling out the idea that it's a news story now, if you penalize somebody who's not breaking the law, that's different. But the detention is in order to determine the status. Same thing goes for a DUI stop. They stop you, they give you the test in order to determine your status of either being DUI or not. And as we can see from the previous story there, sometimes they still can't tell. Anyway, y'all, so today the Broadview hearing's going down. We will be monitoring that and bringing you the latest when we know. Let me know, y'all, do you think they're going to close Broadview? That would essentially free thousands of people who have been detained. Not that I think there are currently hundreds of people in Broadview, but also the people who are detained after, there would be nowhere to take them. So let me know what y'all think about that down in the comments, y'all. But before you do, please stop, hit the share button, share this video out over email, text message, WhatsApp, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, all of your favorite social mediums. And of course, if you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. Y'all go click the link, join our Patreon. Let's get this group going. Become a founder, the first 222 people. I'll see y'all over there. All right. Want to thank y'all for watching. Love y'all. And we'll see you back in the next one.